sometimes when backbiters are advised to give up such a bad habit, they reply that they're only telling the truth. And this is exactly what some of the Sahaba said. It's exactly what some of the Sahaba thought. They asked the Prophet ﷺ, suppose that there are actual faults in the one that I'm talking about. Now what would you say to that, Gulras?
That even if you tell the truth?
Yeah, I mean, for example, I say, oh, he's so bad-mannered, he speaks badly about, other people, he's this, is, and maybe he is like that.
Even if it's true, the person will still not like for you to mention that behind his back.
Yes, because the Prophet ﷺ in this hadith, he said, if what you say about your brother is true, then that is backbiting. Imagine that. If you speak truthfully about that person, then that is backbiting. But if what you say concerning him is not true, فَقَدْ بَهِتَّ, you have in fact committed buhtan, which is slander against him. So what's the difference between backbiting and slander?
Backbiting is what is true, and slander is what is not true.
Yes. If you backbite the person, it's true. If you slander him, it's something that's not true. But the common link between them is, the person does not like what you're saying about him. And this is a common link. The Prophet ﷺ explained here in this hadith that when you backbite, it's mentioning the faults of a person, even though it's true. And slander is to mention something that is not true of him. Now, Al-Imam An-Nawawi rahimahullah, one of the great scholars of the past, he said in his book Al-Athkar, and I quote, he says, mentioning about your brother something that he would dislike includes what concerns his body, his religious practice, his worldly station, his physical appearance, his moral character, his wealth, his parents, his children, his spouse, his servant, his clothing, his activities, his smiles and frowns, and anything else that pertains to him. So you can imagine how dangerous it is and how easy it is for us to fall into this evil sin. It doesn't matter if you mention it, Imam An-Nawawi goes on to say, explicitly by word or implicitly by indication or by gesture. This includes the likes of saying, oh Allah, pardon us all. So somebody mentions him, he says, oh Allah, pardon us. So-and-so is coming, oh Allah, help us. God help us. Or saying, oh Allah, keep us safe. Even making dua to Allah in this manner, a person has fallen into backbiting. And some person, sometimes they utter these kind of phrases, as I mentioned earlier, I don't want to backbite him, and this has become backbiting. So with this, inshallah, we'll take a break, and after the break, we'll touch more upon this. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد. السلام عليكم. Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about backbiting, and we said that backbiting is mentioning your brother in a way that he doesn't like, as the Prophet ﷺ said.
Does that mean you can backbite someone whilst you're in front of them as well?
This is a very, very good question, because this is what many people think, that backbiting actually means that you can't speak, you can't speak about someone that he doesn't like behind his back, but if I say in front of him, that's okay. This is incorrect. Because the Prophet ﷺ did not actually mention this in the hadith. He said, what is ghiba? Ghiba is, or backbiting is, to mention your brother in a way that he dislikes. Whether that's in front or behind. In fact, this is why some of the scholars, when they gave the tafsir of the verse, وَيْلٌ لِكُلِّ هُمَزَةٍ لُمَزَةٍ, woe be to every humaza and lumaza. They said one of them, humaza and lumaza, one of them is the one who backbites in front of the person, and one of them is the one who backbites behind his back. And some scholars said actually one is a slanderer and one is a backbiter. So there's difference of opinion on who is cursed. So it's not allowed to actually backbite someone in front of him. In other words, mention him in a way that he doesn't like. Of course, this means in the presence of other people. But one can advise on these kind of things and joke around if people are okay with that.
Does the same go for slander as well?
Slander, taban, is not allowed at all. You can't slander someone because that involves lying. Unless it is clear to everybody that it's a joke. And the person himself doesn't mind that he's being mentioned in this manner. Okay, so for example, if there's someone tall, very tall, extremely tall, and as a joke someone says, hey, shorty. Okay, everybody knows he's not shorty. Okay, and the person himself doesn't mind it. In this case, it's fine to do that, because it's done in a joking manner. But if the person did mind, then of course it wouldn't be allowed. And we should look at the urf as well, the custom of the people, to judge that. Now, backbiting is a very evil sin in Islam. and we can take one example from the Sahaba, when one Sahabi criticized a man who had been punished for committing adultery. So he'd been punished for committing a major sin, adultery, and someone backbit this person. Now the Prophet ﷺ was traveling, and he passed by the carcass of a donkey. And he said, where are those two people who spoke badly about the one who committed adultery? Get down and eat from the flesh of this donkey. And they were surprised. They said, Ya Rasulullah, O Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who would eat this? It's a dead carcass, carcass of a donkey. He said, what the two of you have recently done by defaming the honor of your brother is far worse than eating from this. Allahu Akbar. Look how the Prophet ﷺ defended the honor of a person who was punished for committing adultery, one of the major sins in Islam. But yet, the Prophet ﷺ still criticized them and called this backbiting, and he said this was worse than eating the flesh of a dead donkey. Now if this is the case, what about backbiting people who have not committed a major sin? What about backbiting scholars, or people who call to or fight for Islam? And this is a very common slip-up. People say the Mujahideen are this, the Mujahideen are that, the callers to Islam are this, the Maulvis are this. And this is all comes under backbiting if he speaks about a particular individual. Now Muslims should not be backbiting others.
Sorry, Sheikh, can I just interrupt you?
Yes.
Does that mean it's okay to speak about the group in general?
No. Again, there's a bit more to that, and we'll mention that, inshallah, in a short while. Now, Muslims should not backbite others, but should be concerned with their own faults. And if we find a fault with our brother, we should advise him and guide him to eliminate his faults rather than vilifying him. Okay, with this, inshallah, let's have a look at some thoughts from people on the street, inshallah.
Backbiting is a bad habit. It's about when two people talk about someone behind his back.
Backbiting, when two persons of a group of people talk about someone behind his back, usually of the bad words, it can lead to some further problems because it hurts the one that does not know that they are talking about him.
Backbiting is caused when a person talks about another person and he doesn't give him a chance to defend himself.
When you talk about someone behind the back, you can say wrong information about them, and you don't give them a chance to defend themselves.
Well, they're looking at what God gave others, and they're not satisfied with what God gave them.
There's some very interesting comments about backbiting there. The Sahaba actually, and the early Muslim scholars, they actually knew the reality of backbiting and its punishment. And they saw the weightiness of this. They were very careful about what they would utter. And in fact, even after that, they would be fearful of their tongues. We know the famous example of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. Gulraz, when I say Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, what comes into your mind about this companion of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam?
Well, immediately you think of someone who's, humble, very honest,
shy, soft,
doesn't get angry.
And this we can see throughout the narrations of the Sahaba. But guess what he did? He pointed to his tongue and he said, this is the thing that caused me most destruction. And this is very worrying for us. If Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, the one who is known for his honesty, he is soft, he is calm, and he says something like this, that this is the thing that destroyed me, his tongue, then how about us? How much more fearful should we be? In fact, it's narrated that Al-Hasan al-Basri, rahimahullah, the great tabi'i, he died in the year 110 after Hijrah. Al-Hasan al-Basri, he was once backbitten. Somebody came to him and said, hey, so-and-so is backbiting you. So what did he do? He got some dates, and he sent them as a gift to the one who backbit him. And then he said, it has reached me, he wrote a letter, he said, it has reached me that you have gifted me some of your good deeds. So I wanted to repay you for that, but I apologize, I'm unable to repay you in full. And this shows that he understood the reality of backbiting, which is what? Who is backbiting really harming? Baha.
Talking about other people, you mean...
who is it harming? If I backbit someone, if I talk about someone, am I harming him or am I harming myself?
Both, I think so.
But what do you think?
I think it's the person who actually